Josh. Thank
Oh, thanks, Josh.
Yep.
So I just want to share with you guys why I actually reached out to Lucky to give this talk. And thank you guys for allowing me to give this talk. I'm glad I'm talking to an events team. This is perfect. Honestly, the biggest reason why I reached out to give this talk is because of Net. I'm sure a lot of you guys were at Net, and in 2019, Net like totally changed. Like seeing Brandon Brown talk, like a lot of the speakers there, just I like tripled my sales from my first year to my second year, and Net had such a huge part in that. Just a lot that I learned, a lot of people I met, a lot of people I talked to, and honestly, I reached out to Alicia, Brian, a couple other people, and I'm really trying to be a guest speaker at Net for the under $1 million group. I just think it's such a great group. Being at that sales range, like you're learning so much, and I think what's so exciting is when you're under $1 million, even over $1 million, of course, but the mind is so malleable, and the opportunity to increase 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a single year is just huge when you're in that group. So I just want to share some things that I feel have helped me along my journey. I started with Cutco in 2019. My first year, I sold 55,000. My first full year in Cutco in 2020, I sold 165. And then in 2021, I sold 347. And 2022, I sold 265. So I went down in sales, and I'm really excited to talk about that as well. And right now, I'm having my best year ever so far. I'm at 135, and I have a good amount of time left. I'm trying to hit the 400 this year. So thank you guys for allowing me to talk today, to share some of my tips. And of course, if you have any questions, please let me know at the end. And Nick, do I have permission to share? Yeah, can you allow me to share, please?
Yep. Yeah, I can do that for you.
Awesome. So having a massive start to your Cutco career, again, guys, I just want to take some time and I want to share some things I've learned in my 4 years and what I truly believe has taken me to 2 and 3 times my sales year by year. So like I said, I just want to share a little bit about myself. Thank you, Nick, for doing that. I'm married. I have a 3-year-old. I always like to talk about powerlifting because it relates so closely to what I do today. I really loved powerlifting. When I first started doing powerlifting, I was just a really small kid, just wanted to be good at something. My freshman year, weighing 110 pounds. Football is pretty fun, getting knocked around and stuff, but I wanted to find something that I could really excel at, really do well at. And what I loved about powerlifting is it was just all about setting goals. And I learned very quickly that usually the best lifters in the state were the people that spent the most time in the weight room. I learned that very quickly in my career, going to morning practices, afternoon practices, practicing on my own. And that's just something that just really propelled me into what I do today, just setting goals, putting in the work, and crushing your goals, right? And sometimes the best thing can be not crushing your goals. It can be a real big wake-up call. So what I hope you guys do take away from this talk is number one, how to track your stats. I'm really excited to get into that. That's something that I do very often, and just keeps me sane, keeps my business moving, I feel. I'll talk more about that. How to level up your skills. How or why I truly believe you should find a mentor. I will talk more about that, of course, but after my first summer, I got my first Cutco mentor. I was only at $30,000 in sales, and it's crazy. He's my coordinator now, and he tells me all the time, just seeing where you're at, LA, and it was crazy. I was your first mentor, so I'm big believer in mentors. I'm excited to talk about that. How to create a business plan, and I hope you guys get a little bit of inspiration to be the best version of yourself this year, whether it's in Cutco or in something else, right? What I love about Cutco is so many people in this business are just growth minded. So tracking our stats, Why should we track our stats, right? To know what we're good at, to know what our stats are, what we're good at, and to know where we can improve. So with this events team, I'm hoping that we're all still doing appointments as well. I know I don't do as many demos today, but every summer as part of the office culture, I always like to, book 10, 15, 20 demos, pop in at a team meeting, just do some demos because they're really fun. And we just kind of forget how big that part can be of our business, right? So you should track our demo and service call completion percentage. So if I book 10 demos, how many of those am I going to complete? We should track our closing percentage. So if I complete 10 demos, how many sales am I going to get? We should be tracking our average order. I like to do that for each layer that I have. I like to track my demo average order, my service call average order. If anyone here does service events, this is my first year doing service events. I like to track my service event average order and my booth average order. And then also how many calls it takes us to book one appointment. Is it taking 5, 10, 15, 20 calls to book someone for that sharpening, that service, or that demo? At the booth, I like to track how many orders I get per day and my average order. So if you're new, I recommend good goals to aim for. 70% completion, 70% closing, $400 average order, and at least 10 calls to book an appointment. At the booth, I would strive for 2 orders a day at a $400 average order. I'm going to take a pause on this. And I want to actually share with you guys my stats and how I track them. This is something I've been doing since 2021, pretty religiously. And I do want to share with you guys, if anyone would like this template and would like to use this for themselves, once I'm done, I'm going to put my email into the chat. You guys can just shoot me an email and I will share with you guys this template. You can just delete things, make it your own. And this is something I always look forward to doing because it shows me where I'm at. It's exciting when you have a really good week. Like, man, I put in the work and I just had a 10K week or a 5K week or whatever it is. But what's also great is like, man, I put in the work and I don't know, I only sold like 2 or 3K. What's going on? And I can actually see, I wasn't closing this week. I wasn't completing demos. Like, what's going on? How can I adjust? How can I change? What can I do to be better? Right? So I have 3 main tabs. This first tab, just 2023. This is just kind of like my master yearly goal sheet. So I have, and I'll zoom out here. I have this for my complete year, right? This kind of ties in with the business plan. And if everything goes right with my business, my appointments, my shows, all my estimations, we should be looking at a 448K year. Usually things don't go perfect. So it's my 4th year. I'm just hoping to hit that 400. But diving into this, what I've done is I've gone through every week. I've gone through my year, the shows I believe I'll be working this year. And I have how many days I'll be at the booth. Well, I have the month, the week, the event I'm working, how many days I'll be at the booth, my goal of orders at that particular show, my event CPO goal. And this event CPO goal, this will correlate with what my average order at the booth is. So 1605 divided by 3, that would be my average order, right? And then I have most of my service set throughout the year. I already have in my schedule all the dates that I plan to do service events, service calls. I have all of that in my schedule. I have it worked out. So you can see here in January, I had 28. This was my first service event, super fun. 28 appointments set. I completed 21. This was my estimation. I was going to get 14 orders, and I wanted to sell 9,900. And then I have my estimated CPO for that week, and then I have what actually happened, right? So I was estimating I'd sell 11K that week, and I sold 10K that week. So I'm really loving this because what I'm loving is working intentionally. That's huge for me. Working intentionally Every day I go to work, I have a goal. I'm trying to hit something. It doesn't always work out, but what I've seen is throughout the weeks, the months, the numbers are not perfect every week, but they are averaging out to where they should be. So this is just my master stat list. And then I go in depth on, this is my service call and service event page. So I have set, completed, my completion percentage, the sales, what I closed at, and then the CPO that I generated. Right, and I do that for all the weeks I do service. And then I have a tally on the bottom with how that month went, right? So in January, my completion was at 60, had some good weeks, some lower weeks. My closing was at 70, it hovers around 70. And then my average order, right? So it's fun to look at that. If it dips, see what we can improve, what we can do better. And finally, at the booth, right? Days at the booth, amount of orders I got, how many orders I'm getting per day, my CPO, and my average order, right? So it's fun to see, wow, I only had a 361 average order, what was going on there? But I couldn't complain because I had 40 orders that month, right? And it's fun to go in and just see what was different, what was better, what was worse. So leveling up our skills, right? First, the question is, what Cutco skills are there, right? There's definitely more, but I just put the main skills we should have as a Cutco rep: rapport, dropping down, closing, marketing, new and past customer approach, family program, cookware, flatware, gadgets, wellness mats, outdoor items, bundles, Cutco kitchen, right? Are we even talking about the Cutco kitchen? The business, realtor program. This isn't a talk to go over all those skills, just to talk about understanding what the skills are and where to start, right? So you want to prioritize. If there's reps in here that are already great at new and past customer, flatware, cookware, packages, can we improve on realtor, on business gifts, on other programs, right? But if you're new, I always recommend starting at these top 5: new and past customer approach, flatware, cookware, packages, and marketing. The reason I recommend those 5 is because everyone wants to sell a Cutco kitchen. If you can master the new and past customer approach, flatware, cookware, and packages, that should get you the skill level to sell a Cutco kitchen. So I recommend rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on each skill. Once you're at a 7, move on to a new skill. And how can we level up those skills? Through role playing. Who has role played recently, right? I'm out here in Corpus Christi. There hasn't been an office here for a while. So I've been going to my local office that just opened up, doing some role playing, finding a rep, finding an FSM, and leveling up my skills in that way, right? We can also level up through Vector Connect, field training, and mentorship. So I love mentorship. This is Manny Martinez. He was my first mentor. When I started mentoring, I was at like 30K, and I told him, Manny, I'm having a baby. I want to get really good at this because I want to be able to support my family. And he started mentoring me at the great deal of $150 a month. I don't think you can beat that today. He was at a higher skill level. I think it was at like 600K at the time. He kept me accountable. He helped me plan. He encouraged me. He helped me skip the failures, right? He wished that he had started marketing a long time ago. So there I was at 100 customers, and I started marketing at 100 customers, and it's one of the best things I could have ever started so early in my career. He also helped me level up my skill set, right? I learned about cookware, about flatware, about all those basics that I felt the managers just didn't know to a super high level, right? So I was just super thankful for him. He took me from 160 or from 55K in my first 6 months to in 2020, I sold 165. That was super fun. And by the way, I'm not here to like promote myself as a mentor or telling you absolutely must mentor and go and pay someone for it. I always recommend that, but mentorship doesn't mean you have to pay for it, right? Find a young CSP, someone that just had a 1, 2, 300K year, someone that's doing what you want to do, and ask them to teach you a skill that they're good at. You get value, the mentor gets value, because I personally love mentoring. I love volunteering at talks, because when you really teach something is when you really know something. And volunteer to speak at team meetings. It's super fun, and the managers always love to have you. So creating a business plan, this goes into that first slide I went on my sheets, my 2023. But before I did that, I went into my schedule and I put in my negotiable and my non-negotiable activities, right? So things for me that I'm okay with negotiating, maybe not doing religiously every week, but still doing often, is going to the gym, right? I'm always open to moving the time I want to go to a gym to a different time, another day, to work something else in. I'll move church. I'll skip church to work a show, and I'll always negotiate time with friends because my family comes first for me, and I want to provide for my family. But things for me that are non-negotiable is family trips. My wife and I, we're going to Vegas for her birthday. We're going to a festival in December, and we do a yearly anniversary trip. And things like school, right? If you're in school, that should be a non-negotiable. So I just want to break down for any new reps, and this works for 100, 200, 300, just 2x or 3x numbers. But having 100K a year, if anyone in here hasn't done that yet, first, it comes with knowing your stats, right? And knowing how much you're truly going to work every week. Is it going to be 3, 4, 5 days? 60% closing with 6% completion, a 500 average order, making 5 calls to book an appointment. Selling 100K a year works out to about 8K a month, which is 2K a week. And then a nice big December, big mall season, big December sale. It would take 2 days at the booth. Just one order today sells you 1,000. And 2 days of 6 appointments set per day equals 30 calls. Should get you the rest of what you need. So just to recap, tracking our stats. We want to track our stats so we know where we do well and where we can improve. We want to level up our skills, determine what programs or products we can work on as soon as possible to move the needle forward in our business, finding a mentor, and finally creating a business plan. Thank you guys. That's all I have for you guys today. I really appreciate it. If we have time for questions, I definitely have some time for some questions.
Awesome. Appreciate it, LA. Yeah, that was awesome. The thing that I really liked is you like know your numbers so well. And it's like, yeah, some of the weeks you're maybe down $1,000, but every single month you achieved what you were set out to sell based on the stats stock that you shared with us. So appreciate it, man. But yeah, we definitely have some time for some questions. Does anyone have a question for LA?
And guys, I did put my my email in the chat. So if anybody would like me to share with them that document, you have to email me personally, but I will share that with you.
Awesome. Who's got a question for LA?
I want to know about that 59K week. Like, how did it break down? You know, was it just like a really big order that created it, or what created it for you?
Yeah, I'll be honest on that one. It was a little bit of luck being at the level that I'm at now. I did a service call for a customer, sold him about 3K, and found out he was the CEO of a pretty big beef company. It's actually like 5 minutes down the road from my house. And I had just started selling business gifts that year. That was 2021. I was at like, this was June. And at that point in time, I was at like 6K on the year in business gifts. That is a big focus I have in my business now. But I just asked him, have you done any gifts or anything like that? I set up a meeting with him, and actually I wasn't mentoring with Rob at the time. I'm mentoring with Rob Robincheck right now. But I just reached out to Rob, and not knowing anything about me, he just took time out of his day, gave me about 20 minutes, gave me some pointers on what I should do before the meeting, what to do on the meeting. I was nervous as heck, but I did everything he said, and I came out of that business gift meeting with a 50K order. That was super crazy. Just being the level I'm at now, I would have done things so much differently. So it was that 50K order that week. And then I had service appointments set. So of course, I still did my service calls, and I did my show, and I sold another 9K that week. That was super sweet, and I'm working real hard to get my next big gift like that.
Awesome. Any other questions for LA about anything? Any questions?
I got a question. Hey LA, it's Kevin. I was just wondering what has your experience been like, kind of focusing or shifting your focus to business gifts this year? Like what does that look like for you? And maybe how has that impacted either your sales or just kind of like your mindset?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in 2022, and I forgot to share, but I sold 347 in 2021. I mentored with Luke and Josh and got my Rolex and felt like a big shot and didn't humble myself and said, "Oh, I don't need mentoring. I got it. I'll focus on the business gifts. You know, I'm a knife slinger." And that year, my sales dropped right to 265, which isn't a bad year at all. But it just showed me like, hey, the 1 year I don't mentor, my sales dip. So 2023 or end of 2022, reached out, started the mentoring. I'm on pace to have my biggest year ever. And so far, what I've gotten the most out of that program and out of actually Joseph Rodriguez, he's a guest on one of my events teams, has been learning that it is 100% about the relationships. This is a relationships business. That has been my biggest takeaway. I've sold gifts at the booth. I've sold gifts at the home. But what I've realized is all of my big gifts that I've sold is because the relationship is really great. So I have a biz tracker where I track all of my clients. I track all of my prospects. I'm taking notes. I do order forms, paper order forms. I'm having my assistant put those notes into my CRM. So I have 1,500 clients. I'm not going to remember everything about every client. So keeping notes on them for the relationship has been huge. And I feel like because I'm building these strong relationships with these business owners, I'm really teeing myself up to have my biggest year. I do see myself selling on this year already. I'm at about 8K on business gifts. And I have some meetings coming up, and I truly see myself finishing at least 40K on this year. Wouldn't be my biggest year, but I just want those clients. I want to convert clients. I want to convert orders. And I want to be like Rob, and I want to have a 70% business gifts reorder rate. And that, I think that's the biggest thing I've taken from his program so far is this is a relationships business. Great question, Kevin. I appreciate that.
Love it. Thank you.
Any other questions? You got time for one more. Someone's got a question. Anything?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Nick. I appreciate it. And thank you, Lucky, for helping me set this up. And hope you guys have a great day. And like I said, if anyone would like those documents, just email me. And by the end of today or tomorrow, I will share with you that sheet I use for my stats.
Awesome. Appreciate it, LA. Appreciate the goods. And appreciate you willing to speak to our team. It's great. Thanks for sharing the knowledge.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one. Awesome. So yeah, definitely the biggest takeaway I got from that message, even as a CSP that's been around for a long time, is just knowing your numbers and, you know, planning your success. That's definitely a big thing. So next up, we have Calvin Lopez. So Calvin is, he's actually a part of our Wisconsin State Fair team this year. He's coming up. I met Calvin down in Texas during the state fair down there last year, and I got to spend some time with him, and Calvin's great. For those of you that don't know Calvin, he's actually at $2.3 million in career sales. His best week is $52,000. Best day is 18,000. Well, basically 19,000, 18,976. Just sold another peeler, right? And then best or proudest Cutco achievement, selling $500,000 in a year. And he has a wife named Alex. Fun fact about Calvin is it literally says, "I'm awesome." So yeah, Calvin is awesome. He's a great guy. And for those of you that don't know Calvin, he loves to travel. I know you just got back from Singapore recently. I definitely want to know more about that. That sounded like an awesome trip. But Calvin is here to talk about how to have a 100K month and also how to sell a lot of flatware, because this guy freaking kills it at flatware. So Calvin, go ahead and take it away.
Will do. Appreciate it, Nick. Yeah, I was actually in Dubai, not Singapore.
Got it. Okay, Dubai.
But no, yeah. So obviously I appreciate y'all having me on. I'm excited to share some things that I've been doing. Hopefully it helps you. I'm going to start with flatware because that one's a quick one for as far as the message goes. I love selling flatware. I love selling cookware. I love selling everything we make. But flatware for me is just something that I consider a 1 to 2 minute pitch with customers that's going to add an extra, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,300 CPO to any order we're already doing, or just start an order there if we need to. The way I kind of tend to work with customers is I tend to be a little direct, but not in like a dickish way. Like I just use my personality for what it is. And I don't mind calling a customer out in a nice way that they don't feel like pushed or anything in that kind of way. But like normally, like if it's a past customer and they're coming up to the booth and we'll chit chat for a minute, like I will just straight up ask them. So like, hey, when are you going to buy our flatware? Like it's just a very nonchalant, but very upfront kind of matter of fact question. And if it's a new customer, it's not very different. It's just like, hey, so when are you going to replace all of the current flatware you have in your kitchen? Like, and I just want to ask those questions just to put the feeler out to see if they're interested or not. And based on kind of how they respond, that's going to give me the idea, or that's going to tell me whether or not I need to go forward with what I'm with trying to sell it to them, or if it's basically me wasting my time. So whenever they show some interest and they're like, oh, we've actually been thinking about it, or, oh, I didn't know Cutco had flatware. Any kind of response that kind of indicates, hey, they're open to this idea or this option. I'll just kind of go right into the pitch. I'll just let them know, hey, just so you know, it's Cutco, so it's crazy expensive. It actually retails for like $2,876. And I just kind of leave that there hanging. It's actually one of Cutco's best kept secrets. It's like one of our biggest corporate discounted packages here at the event. It's our forever flatware. Now, I love it because it kind of has that perfect weight where it's not too heavy and it's not too light. So it feels really good in your hand, but it won't knock the food off the plate whenever you set it down. And I'll always try to hand it to them kind of immediately so that way they can have it in their hand. And I just kind of start nodding yes while I'm saying that. So they'll just naturally agree with me. It's American made. It's 1810 stainless. It's dishwasher safe. It has that diamond pattern. So because diamonds last forever. We also have never changed that pattern. So you never have to worry about having any of that mismatched Frankenstein stuff in your drawers ever again. And one of my favorite things about it is like, this is something that we use every day, but this is also something that we're putting out whenever we have people over. So we're not switching back and forth between different sets. We just have this one forever set that's amazing, that covers all of our bases. Now, the reality is, like, if you were open to the idea of getting some new flatware from us today, like, would 12 place settings be enough for you? Or would you be more interested in like 24 or 36? Like, what's going to fit your kitchen best? Like, I keep it short and sweet and to the point. And then I try to gauge what they're at. And they're like, oh, 12 is probably enough. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. No big deal. Now, just so you know, because this is our big corporate discount, instead of actually paying that $2,800 price tag, what Cutco is actually allowing us to do right now is they're actually letting us do a really cool discount where we knock everything down to where it's just $2,074. So basically you're saving literally over $800 off of this package right here. And I kind of like, whenever I start bringing up the lower price, I'll literally lean in and I'll start talking lower just to make it kind of a bigger deal or a bigger impression. And then I really emphasize the fact that like, hey, this is $800 off. But like the main things I'm doing whenever I'm pitching the flatware, I'm very intentionally leaving that whole pitch as, hey, this is $2,800. This is kind of what you're expecting to pay. And then I kind of just go through the whole thing about it. Like I don't take a whole long time. I don't do anything crazy special. I hit the super high points to help them understand like this is a big deal now. It's amazing. You're going to love it. You're going to have it forever. It has the same Cutco guarantee. If anything ever happens to it, we'll fix or replace it. I'll show them the stainless table knife. I'll even have them cut leather with it if I feel like they're kind of still on the fence. but then I'll kind of lean in and let them know like, hey, this is the discounted price and this is where we're going with it. And then it's just crazy how many people get excited about it when they realize that price. They're like, oh man, this kind of makes sense. If they're still on the fence and I need to push a little harder, what I'll generally do is I'll just bonus half of the starving set instead of bonusing the whole 6-piece. Like that way I give myself an extra drop down. So I can take basically like $180 off. They're still excited. I'm still not kind of ruining the CPO, but like I'm still getting a good deal. And if they're really still on the fence, I still have that extra drop down to bring it down to where it's just 17, but I'm giving myself a little extra leeway where it's, and then I always make it a big deal. Like, hey, you know what? I can tell you kind of like it, or I can tell you really like it and you're kind of on the fence. If I were to do something a little extra special for you just to try to earn your business today, like, is it something you could see yourself pulling the trigger on right now? And then I'll kind of go into that, like, hey, here's the middle, here's the next one. Like, but it gives myself an extra drop down instead of just going straight for like bonusing the whole 6-piece set. I want to have that extra opportunity if I need it. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I don't want to make it too like, oh my gosh, like it's simple. Like it's amazing. They love it. I'm going to hit the high points really well. I'm going to be really excited about it whenever I talk about it. I'm going to be really low and whispery whenever I'm telling them the discount. I'm going to make it a really big deal because it's $800 off. And then I just kind of go from there. But it's not, it's very straightforward, but it's very simple. And I always want to make sure I have it in their hand. And I've already told them it's the perfect weight where it's not too heavy and it's not too light. One of the biggest things I noticed early on was like they would pick it up and they'd be like, oh, it's just so light, I don't like it. So like I'm trying to pre-handle that objection before it ever comes up by putting it in their head that this is the way it's supposed to feel and this is the best weight that it could be. And if they still say anything about the weight, I'm like, yeah, just so you know, Mrs. Jones, heavy doesn't mean good. And like, because that's what they're kind of already thinking in their head. They're like, oh, this is really, oh, my Flatware is heavy and I really like it. I mean, because it's really good. I'm like, no, heavy doesn't mean good. Ours is quality. It has that perfect weight. Because how many times have you set something on your plate and it's just knocked stuff everywhere? And they're like, oh yeah, that has happened. I'm like, with us, it's crazy durable too, though. Like you can see how sturdy it is and how well made it is. But we're very intentional about the weight. So that way it feels better for you, but it doesn't cause those messes. So it just kind of helps kind of get them over that hurdle if it is there. But I always try to handle it before it ever comes up. So I don't have to deal with it as much as often on the back end. So that way they're already kind of feeling it. They already like, oh, this does feel right. I like that. Because like normally 9 out of 10 times they're going to look at each other and be like, oh, this does feel really good. Now, and I can answer more questions on that, but I'm going to kind of jump into the 100K month. Just that one's going to take a little bit more time. So 100K month it's just awesome. There's no feeling like there's no better feeling than when you're getting $20,000+ on your bonus check on that first week of the next month. Like it's just exciting. It's nice. You have a fat commission coming in. It's just it's a good time. And I'm not saying money makes the world go around, but it does make me feel better when I have more of it. And that's okay. Now, I've had a 100K month a few times. I just had one in January this year. I was super excited. It was planned to happen. I wanted to sell 100K in January. Last year I sold 80K. So I knew it was possible. I always sell 100K at our state fair in October. My best month ever was $128,000. I was excited. It was awesome. Again, just fat bonus checks. But like when it comes down to it, like it's never happened on accident for me. It was very intentional. I knew walking into it, like that was my goal, was to sell $100,000, but I had to kind of break it down to make it happen. So, and I like that LA's talk was right before this because he had so many important things that kind of factor into it. Like one thing is you have to know your stats. You got to know what you're capable of and what you're doing. So that way, you know what you need to work towards to actually make it happen. Like you have to know what your average order is. If your average order isn't very high, you got to learn to grow it if you want to make a 100K month happen. You got to know like how many orders per day am I going to get at an event? Like what's your average order count? Like for me, when I work an event, I will normally average 10 to 12 orders a day. That's my goal. That's my expectation. And that's what I'm shooting for. So based off of that, I know I'm going to need to have like a $600 to $700 average order to hit the numbers that I want to hit for each event I'm working. You got to know like what's your closing percentage? How many people are you letting walk away from you each day? Like these things, sometimes we take it for granted or we don't want to think about it or we don't want to talk about it. But the reality is like, I need to know what I'm doing at the booth. If I'm having an off day, why am I having an off day? I can sit here and say like, oh, it was just a bad crowd and that's on me. But no, the reality is I could have closed some of those people. So I do like to reflect, but I don't like to dwell on the people I let go. So I will think about the interactions. And if I'm working with somebody, I will ask if they weren't busy. Like, hey, did you notice anything I could have done in that situation that probably could have closed that deal? And that's not a bad thing, to use the resources with the people you have around you. How many times have you had a 100K campaign? Like, because the reality is, if you haven't had a 100K campaign yet, you're probably not going to have a 100K month. So like, you have to kind of start, like, it breaks down into levels. So like the first 100K plus campaign that you had, like, what did it look like to make that happen for you? Like, how many shows did you work? How many days did you work? What was your average order for that campaign? How many orders did you have? How many customers did you reach out to? How many service calls? Did you do a sale? Like, what did it do? Now, once you know all those factors that made that happen, how can you condense that down into a 30-day period to make a 100K month a realistic option? Like, I remember my first 100K campaign I had, it was in the fall. It was in like 2017, I think. And it was a huge thing. But then it was like, okay, now how do we start to do that in a shorter time frame? So like, what I started to notice was, like, my average order back then was only like $350. And that's not a bad average order, but it wasn't what I needed to have bigger numbers. Because my biggest focus for the past few years has been, how can I sell more but work less? Like, I'm just at a point in my business where travel is important, my wife is important, like spending time with family, things like that. We have different goals and different things we want to do. And I can't grind for 52 weeks of the year anymore, but I don't want to sell less than what I'm already doing. I want to have bigger numbers. So like, I had to start to focus, like, so to grow my average order, I had to start looking at, like, how am I going to sell bigger sets? Like, how many times have you role played your ultimate approach? How many times have you practiced upserving? How many times, like, how well do you know each and every package that Cutco sells? So that way you can kind of just pitch it, like, just off the cuff, nonchalant, no big deal. Like, I got way better at selling Cutco kitchens. I don't sell them all the time, but I have way more package deals because I'm way more interested in selling a Cutco kitchen. I got way better at selling ultimates because ultimates are a huge needle mover for the business for us. Like, if you sell an ultimate with steak knives and you still bonus some stuff, you're still probably going to walk away with 3,000 CPO plus right now. Like, especially after that last price increase, it's amazing. So like, if you can sell an ultimate like nothing, like, and I don't want to pitch an ultimate with the idea of trying to sell them a signature set. I want to pitch an ultimate because I'm trying to sell an ultimate set. I know sometimes we position that to sell something smaller, but the reality is I want to sell something bigger. But at the same time, having a bigger average order focus doesn't mean I'm going to let the small stuff walk away. Because again, order count is huge and customer acquisition is a huge part of what I want to do with Cutco, and that's going to help me in the long run. But I'm still taking those replacement table knives and I'm still going to try to upserve them from there. But if they don't want it, I'm still going to get that order. I'm still going to sell that paring knife or that 2-piece or that 3-piece or that 5-piece or whatever it may be. Like, I'm going to have a bigger focus, but I'm going to take everything that I can with every interaction I have with a customer. And then it's just breaking it down for the game plan. Like, what are you willing to do to make it happen? Like, how many days in a month are you willing to work to hit the goal you're trying to hit? How many sale are you going to run a sale during a month when you know you have a lot of stuff going on, but you have an opening? Are you gonna, how good are you at your business gift approach? Like, business gifts are a huge needle mover for this business right now. I had a 24K order this year. That was my biggest one to date, but I've still sold like 50 grand this year in business gifts. It's those things right there. Like, I've been very intentional asking every single customer I have an interaction with, no matter what type of event it's at, like, hey, what do you do for work? Because you never know what you can add to an order. All of a sudden it's like, yeah, we got this ultimate with steak knives, and they added 10 2-piece gifts because they run a business. All of a sudden that $3,000 order went to like a $6,000 order, just like that, just because I was willing to take the extra 2 seconds to ask, hey, what do you do for work? Every single time. Like, we all have that same focus every package every time. So are we asking them what they do for work so we can actually hit every package every time? I had a customer, we sat down, it was a service call, because I still do service calls because I'm not above them. And sometimes that's what a customer wants and that's what they need. And we sat down and we talked about it. We went through it. They did a fan set upgrade. They did a legacy cookware set. They did a flatware chest. They did 10 business gifts, and they did 2 homemakers on a family program. Like, all of a sudden it was an 11K order because we sat down and we went through every single process, and he wanted to buy everything. But then when you break it down, it's like, okay, are you trying to go for 100K week or 100K month in a 4-week month or a 5-week month? Because that's going to affect your goals and your averages. So like, you got to know, again, what are you able to do and how many times are you going to be, or how much time do you actually have to achieve the goal? If it's a 4-week month, basically, how do you average 25K a month or 25K a week? Like, because that's just the real breakdown. That's as simple as it can be. If I can sell 25K a week for 4 weeks in a row, that's 100K a month. If it's a 5-week month, because normally it's what, January and December for sure, always 5-week months. Okay, how can I sell 20K a week for 5 weeks in a row? Whenever I break it down like that, it's like, okay, I know I have a show on the weekend and that's awesome, but I still want to have, I don't want to waste the rest of the week. So then, okay, I can do service events Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I can go set up my show on Thursday. I can do my show Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I can have a 24-hour flash sale on Monday, that following Monday, whatever I need to do, just so that way I'm not wasting a day. Like if you talk to Vast Action, you reach out to Amy or Josh, like they have those options where if you needed to do a 24-hour or a 72-hour flash sale, you could send something out on an email. You could shoot out a blast on texting base or whatever you use for your marketing, and you can add that layer to the week for you. All of a sudden, it makes up for any number you didn't quite hit. How many business gift contacts do you already have in your CRM that you haven't followed up with, and have you scheduled a time to follow up with them? And when is that time? Like in January, I sold $99,000 at the booth, and then I sold $24,000 on a business gift, so it ended up being $124,000. Now for me, I didn't have to grind every single day. I only actually ended up working, what was it? I wrote it down so that way I wouldn't forget. It was 13 days at the booth. I did 5 service calls and I had a 24K business gift order. So basically my goal was like, how do I have a $10,000 average at the booth for each shift that I was working? Not for each show, but I wanted to have a $10,000 shift average. Now, the reason I planned it out for January specifically was because we had a huge home show. We call it a home show, but it was called Dallas Safari Club. We sold $120,000 at the show with 2 booths. So I knew that was a big event. So I knew walking into that show, I expected to sell $30,000 right off the bat. That was my game plan. I ended up finishing the show at $33,000. It was awesome. And it was funny because literally that Thursday when I got there, I sold $2,000 for the first shift. I was just like, man, on pace. It was a 4-day show. The second day, I ended up selling 6K, and I was like, that was better, but I needed to sell more. Like the goal was, again, I wanted to have that. The goal was actually to try to have a 10K average. On Saturday, I sold almost $19,000. That was my best day ever at the booth. Now, one of the things I don't do is I don't get emotionally attached to daily results. Like, again, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to average a bigger number, and an average is everything included. So there's good days and there's bad days with everything. So I'm not, okay, that had a 2K day, it didn't matter. I knew I'll be fine. It'll get better. It's just kind of the opening day. Not all the people are there yet. And then on that Sunday, I ended up selling another $9,000, and it ended up hitting where I needed to be plus some. But then we also have our Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. And for us, it's a huge event. We sell $250,000 at this event. We have one 10 by 20 booth. We don't have a lot of space, but I knew I was going to have some good shifts. So the other 9 days I worked that month at the booth were at that show. And that's where I was able to sell the other almost $70,000 plus at that event. So I walked into that knowing I'm going to market to my past customers for my big event because I want to drive attention there. I walked in knowing I was going to try to sell big. I was going to go big, and I had those opportunities to do it. Plus, we were using the price increase to our advantage. So literally for the rest of the year, anytime I talk to a customer and they're on the fence, I'm like, hey, just so you know, we can wait. But come January next year, our prices are going to go up. Because in that email, that's basically what they said. We're going to start doing this yearly, not every other year. So I'm going to use that to help kind of, hey, so if there was something you were thinking about and you wanted to add it to your order right now, let me just make you a little bit better of a deal for doing a bundle. And then we can go ahead and make that work right now, and I can save you a ton of money. Because if you wait till next year, based on the way they just did our price increases last time, it was almost 10%. I don't want to have to charge you that if I don't have to. And they get excited, and they're more open to the idea of doing a bundle and a package versus waiting to do it now. But there's like 1,000,001 reasons on why we have a reason to get it now versus later. It's like, oh, hey, people are doing their Christmas shopping right now, because you can have, if you spend it now, you have more later to spend on the other people. It helps you spread it out, and you got those gifts knocked out. Like there's a lot of extra reasons to encourage them to do things today. But like basically when it comes down to it, like I'm going to make a game plan. I'm going to know my stats. I'm going to know my averages. I'm going to know my order count. And I'm going to know everything I need to know to walk into that and be able to say, hey, this is how I'm going to break it down to do $100,000+ this month. This is how I'm going to sell, $200,000 for the spring campaign, and I'm not going to work a day in April. This is how I know I'm going to go into the summer and sell another $150,000. I'm going to go into the fall and sell another $350,000. Like I already have my year plan basically, but I know based on what I have going on around each month and each day, like where I'm going to land. Like that's why I liked what LA was showing you. Like he has that list and he has that schedule. I can tell you my best ever for every single month of the business that I've worked. And And my goal every time I'm working is I want to be able to do better than I did before, regardless of how many days I'm going to work to make it happen. So like I know my stats and I know what I'm shooting for, and I know how to make it happen. So you got to inform yourself with the information about yourself. And like, okay, if your average order isn't where you want it to be, like, what are you willing to do to grow that number? Because that, for me, that was the biggest thing. How can I double my average order? Because that'll double my year. I don't have to work any more than I already did the year before. If I can grow that average order, maintain the same order count I normally get, I will just naturally sell more Cutco without having to add 20 or 30 extra days a year to grow it. So that's kind of what I got on that for y'all.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Calvin. Definitely the big thing that I got from Calvin's talk is, well, one thing, ultimates, if you just sell them, it's like the best thing that we can sell for sure.
Yeah.
Like super easy to sell and it's gonna add a lot of CPO to your day, but it's like, it's all about just having that. And I'm even like thinking about like, I'm like, oh, Wisconsin, I'm like, if I can hold like a 7K average, but I'm like, maybe I should, be pushing for 8, 9, 10K days. Cause as long as you believe you can do it, you can do it. It's whatever you believe you can do. Right. So, and then it's always good to hear, just keep beating yourself and beating your best self. As long as you're better than your past self, like you just said, if you double your average order, you're going to double your year. It's that easy. You just got to maintain your order count. You're good. Right.
Yeah.
And, it sounds simple, but it's obviously, it takes a lot of work to grow your skill level, but all those things are good to hear. Calvin, if you have some time for questions here,
Yeah.
we have a couple of questions from people on the team. Does anyone have any questions for Calvin?
I got a question. It sounds like you've done a very good job of like mastering each program or a lot of them. What have you done, or what have you found is the best way for you to memorize your scripts or kind of just master each program?
Yeah. Which I love that, because that's a huge thing for me. Then that's what kind of helped grow my average order. I learned to be humble and realize I'm not the best at what I'm doing yet. Like I want to think I am, and I like to think I'm the best person on our events team, but I know I'm not. So the reality is I don't mind asking for help. Like for ultimate sets, there's a talk that, and I've said this a few times on a few different calls, but there's a talk that Seth did for Net Meeting when it was virtual, where Josh kind of interviewed him on selling ultimate sets. So like I've listened to that talk this year probably 30 times already, just to go kind of just hearing a little kind of things that Seth will go through every time he's going through it. And I'll practice the scripts. Now, once I find a script I really like, I'll write it out 10 or 20 times. Just like I like to handwrite things to help kind of internalize it. So that way it helps me. And then I'm not above role playing my scripts either. So like I will literally, my wife hates this, but I'll ask her to sit there and be my customer so I can go through my pitches. And she's heard my pitches so many times, she could probably do them just as well as me. And if she doesn't want to do it, like I'll ask other people on our show team. Like me and Roger Rodriguez, we'll sit down once every 2 or 3 weeks and just go over planning and go over stuff that we want to work on and try to get better at certain things. So like we're constantly trying to continue to improve each aspect of the business. And we kind of break it down into sections. It's like, okay, how do we sell a new customer? How do we sell a past customer? Cookware, flatware, business gifts, realtor gifts, like, and that's kind of like each one of those things. Like I want to sharpen my axe on complete accessory packages, outdoor packages. Like we want to know like what's any $1,000 package that I can show to a customer. And I want to be able to nail that approach every single time. So I'm going to keep going over them. I'm going to keep practicing them. And I've noticed the more confident I become in each package, the easier it is for me to just add it to the order. It's no big deal when they buy their knife set to add a cookware set or a flatware chest or both of them. It's no big deal to kind of ask them again, like, do you want to add gifts? Is there anyone you give gifts to? What do you do for work? Like, it's just a constant thing because we do it so much. And now it's just kind of like repetition. It's almost like muscle memory to be able to go into that next one.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions for Calvin? Anything at all?
I've got one.
Go ahead, Rob.
Looks like you're a collector. What's all the collector stuff? You're Star Wars fan?
Oh yeah, that's a lot of Star Wars stuff. I am a big nerd, and I don't mind showing it off. But so this is just in my office. But I collect anything that's collectible. I think comics, collectibles, pop figures, helmets, lightsabers, anything from Marvel, anything from anything. Like if you go to my game room upstairs, it's insane.
Cool.
I have a question. So how are you determining like who are the people that you're servicing in home and who are you servicing at an event?
So I will look at order history 100%. So like when a customer calls and asks for service, like while I'm chit chatting with them, I'm going to ask where do they live? Like, is it in a radius I'm willing to drive? And then that radius will expand based on their order history. So like the 11K service call I did, that person lives an hour and 45 minutes away from me, but I knew he was a top tier quality client. Like he buys big when he buys, it's just getting in front of him is hard. So I didn't even suggest, he didn't even ask for the service. I was just like, hey, I won't talk to you unless you let me come sharpen your knives. And he was just like, what? And I was like, you always talk big game, but if I'm not in front of you, it never pans out. So like, I'll come to you if you want, and we can sit down and talk about stuff. And he was like, yeah. But if there's somebody who's bought $200 one time 8 years ago, I would say, hey, we're going to be doing a sharpening event and you should come to my service event. But if it's somebody who's bought, you know, $3,000, but it's 5 orders, like they're most likely going to buy something and they could buy something big if they wanted. So to me, that's worth going to do a service call because I don't want to wait until my service event to be in front of them. So like, I'm going to gauge it based on like time is money, and money, my time is very valuable now versus what it was then. And it's not just because like, oh, I sell a lot, so I think it's worth more. It's more so like, I don't want to take time away from other things I could be doing if I don't think it's going to pay out well enough. So if it's somebody that lives 5 minutes away from me, I don't care. I'll go do it. Like, I won't even check it. But if it's somebody that anything that's 20 minutes or farther, like I'm going to check their order history before I commit to what I'm going to do for them. I just want to know if it's going to be worth the time.
I got a question.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead, Lucky. I'll go ahead.
Come on, Calvin, you got to answer my question.
Nah, Lucky, you suck.
No, you still. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
I was gonna ask you first about the picture of your booth setup. So just reminder to send that out.
Yeah, for sure.
And then for like your upserving verbiage, because that's room for me to grow. Like, can you like spit that out again? Like, are you able to like say that like again word for word, or like what's your like process?
So like a lot of it depends on what the customer is kind of. So when I'm trying to pitch a customer, I want to be very aware of where they're looking and what they're kind of picking up and feeling and what they're noticing while I'm talking about anything I'm talking about. So like if I'm trying to sell them a set, I'm not looking down at what I'm trying to sell them. I'm kind of looking at them and talking, and I'll glance down obviously to hand them something or do something like that. But my main focus is to see where their body's shifting and what they're kind of leaning towards more. Like if they're pulling in, if they're leaning forward, like they're basically telling us more when they're not talking than they are when they're talking about how they really feel. So if I notice the customer's looking at the pots and pans, or maybe one of the spouses walks away while I'm doing it, like I'm keeping that already in the back pocket. So that way, once I finish where we're at and I got that credit card in hand and we've already finalized one order or whatever they're going to get, I'll start to ask those questions. Hey, just so you know, Mrs. Jones, we're not a knife company. Obviously, we're a kitchen company. And my initial approach to every customer is like, when they walk up, is like, oh, could you use anything new for the kitchen? I'm very upfront about that. Like I let them know. I don't ask like, hey, could you use some new knives? I would say, hey, could you use anything new for the kitchen? I want to keep it open so that way I'm not just pigeonholing myself to one specific thing. But like, okay, we land on knives, whatever, we're going through it. They're going to buy a set. I'm like, awesome. Hey, just so you know, we do have some really cool bundle discounts. I don't know if you could ever see yourself getting new flatware or new cookware in the next couple of years. But if you were to get one of those, what do you think your higher priority would be? And like, again, I'm basing it off of whatever they're kind of the most attracted to. If they're attracted to the hunting knives, garden tool sets, cookware, flatware, like whatever I've noticed they've had interest in while I was talking, or whoever the person I was engaging with the most, or if it's just one person, I can see their eyes drift because we do have kind of things laid out pretty close to each, so we can have everything kind of in arm's reach. I'm going to bring it up. I'm saying, just so you know, if we do bundles, we do have better deals and specials. Like, are you open to the idea of adding this to it if I could save you a couple extra bucks doing it now versus later? And again, they're going to tell you right then. They're like, oh, like anytime well, what kind of deal? Like, are like, well, what do you mean I could bundle? Like, if they give me any indication of like, oh, they're open to this, I'm going to show them everything. Like, because again, if they pay in full for an ultimate set with steak knives, they should probably buy a Cutco kitchen. Like, it's just that simple. I should show them everything. I'm like, hey, don't forget our deal of the day. And they'll always laugh. Oh, what's the deal of the day? I thought I bought it all. I'm like, oh no, it's this, look. And I'll just show them the Cutco kitchen brochure. just so they know. I was like, hey, this is where you're going to end up anyway, Mrs. Jones. If you wanted to knock it out today, I could probably do something a little bit extra special for you if you want to look at what it comes with. Because like those are the things I start to think about now. It's like, oh, if they bought a signature set on a 5-pay, that means they were already kind of stretched out of their comfort zone. I'm still going to ask for the other stuff, but like they're probably not going to go for that bigger one. But if they pay for an Ulti or a Siggy or even a Homemaker on paid in full, like no big deal. They just met me 11 minutes ago and they're already giving me thousands of dollars. They can give me thousands more. Because you got to understand, whenever they walk up to our booth at these home shows or state fairs or anything and everything, they're looking at hot tubs and beds and massage chairs, and these things cost tens of thousands of dollars. Why wouldn't they spend tens of thousands of dollars with us? We're a better product than everything else being sold there. We're the only guaranteed forever product that's ever being sold. Like, why would they not give me all of that money? Like, and it's I wholeheartedly believe that. So it's easy for me to want to ask them to spend it. But because I've sold so many bigger orders and so many bigger packages, my confidence in asking for them is so much higher. Like, I'm not afraid to ask a customer to spend $10,000 with me. Before, I used to be, like, I'll be honest, I'd be like, man, I can't imagine what it would be like to spend $10,000 on something. Now I've spent $10,000 on multiple things. So like, it makes sense to me now why people would do that at a better level. And I've seen so many people buy it from me. I feel like it makes sense for them to buy it right now versus buy it later. And if they don't want to buy it now, I'm going to plant the seed for them to come back next year and buy it from me then. Like, hey, once this is paid off, we can do this a few ways. We can either just start you right onto the next thing and we could just do it now, or we can always just, when you're ready, like, these are the things that Cutco makes and this is what you're going to buy anyway. So I want to kind of lead into that one way or another, whether it's just like a famous let go or it's like, hey, you should get it now. But so that way, either they're going to get it all now or they're going to get it over the next few years. Like, I've had so many customers finish their Cutco kitchens at our state fair in Texas. And one of the reasons we do so well there is because we train them to come back every single year to buy something. Like, and whenever they walk away from us, we plant that seed of like, hey, just so you know, when you come in next year, are we going to be looking at pots and pans? Or are we going to be looking at flatware? Are we going to be looking at gifts for the kids? Like, where do you think is going to be the most practical next step for you? So that way they already have it in their head. They come in and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm here to get my cookware, Calvin. I'm like, awesome, let's go ahead and write it up. Do you want to just do the full set? Or are you going to start smaller and be lame and pay more? And they're like, oh no, we'll just do the full. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's just so, like, we want them to have that mentality of like, this isn't a one-time transaction. This is going to be a multi-year relationship that we're going to have together. Like, that's kind of the way I want to leave each customer, so they expect it.
Appreciate you, Calvin. That was great.
For sure.
Calvin, question, how many service events do you do in a year? And then do you know offhand how many service calls you do throughout the year too?
Service events, I will do at least at a minimum 2 full waves of everywhere I cover a territory. Like, so Oklahoma, Texas, and a couple of like one-offs in random places. But I'll generally do, each wave for me is anywhere from like 7 to 12 days of service events, just kind of almost in a row. Or maybe I'll take 1 or 2 days off, but I'll for sure do 2 waves like that right off. Like, that's a guaranteed minimum. Anytime I have some off time that I normally would be working, but I decided to, like, maybe I'm not going to work the show I thought I was or something like that. I love doing weekend service events. I'll go pop up in 2 or 3 different places on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday to fill in a weekend. I should have, like, I thought I was going to have a show and I didn't. And I'll just have they're fillers for me. And I'll do them places where I know I have a ton of customers, where it's like, oh, I filled up this day so quick for all the appointment slots I have available. I only do 45-minute time slots, so I can only fit 13 a day max. And the reality is I have 3,700 customers, like, and I'm only giving 13 people a chance to come see me. So I know I have overflow. My assistant will tell me like, hey, just FYI, we had 17 people asked to be there and they couldn't. So like, I'll keep that log so that way I can go just do it again when I feel like it. And then service calls, I will generally only do a service call if they call me. So I don't really have an accurate count. Like, I don't advertise that I'm actively going out to do them. Like, but anytime a customer reached out based on like the level of quality they have as a customer, that'll determine whether or not I'll go do it. So, I mean, it ranges. Maybe I do 50 a year throughout the year. And then if people have asked, again, my assistant, you should always have an assistant if you want to be a higher level sales rep, because there's just too many things we can't do it all. But if people are like, oh, I want to get my knife sharpened, we'll keep it logged. If I'm already going to go out to that area for somebody who's really high quality and somebody's kind of decent or mid or questionable, we're unsure, Like, we can go out there since I'm already going to be there. I'll do the service call for them as well. And then I'll have notes on like whether or not I would do it again. So it kind of helps me gauge it sometimes.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Definitely helps. Any other questions?
I have one more.
Go for it.
How do you explain when you're explaining the guarantee, like at the booth, like are you planting the seed for service events there as well? Like, how are you explaining like what's included and what's not included with you in the guarantee?
Yeah. Like, so basically it's like part of the power intro. Like, hey, are you familiar with Cutco? And they're like, oh no, never heard of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's awesome. No big deal. Like, hey, well, just so you know, Cutco's actually been around since the 1940s. All of our products are guaranteed forever, or all of our knives are 100% American made and they're all guaranteed forever. So basically, if you ever need them serviced or sharpened, we sharpen them for free. If they ever chip, crack, melt, break, we'll fix or replace them for free. And they're 100% dishwasher safe. And I'll ask them so what city do you live in? Like, because I want to know where they live before I offer any type of certain thing. And they'll tell me, oh, I live in Fort Worth. I'm like, okay, perfect, awesome. Well, just so you know, when it comes to servicing and sharpening, I'm a local representative. So what we do here is we'll actually do local sharpening events a few times a year where you can bring your knives in. We'll sharpen them on the spot. If anything's damaged or broken, we'll actually send it into Cutco for you and they'll send it back directly to you. For some customers, sometimes I'll even come out to the house and I'll sharpen them for free. Or you can always mail them into Cutco if you don't ever want to talk to me again. Like, that's an option as well. And just like, I'll do it kind of right there in the beginning to break down. I want to create the expectations that they're going to see me constantly, but they're always going to be taken care of. Like, we're high level Cutco concierge reps, basically. Like, hey, I'm your concierge rep. You have a pool guy, you have a yard guy, you have a knife guy, and I'm your knife guy. Like, that's one of the things I always tell them whenever they're leaving as well, just so that way they know, like, oh, okay. I was like, I'm going to stay in touch. Like, we're going to be friends, or I'll never talk to you again. And that's cool too. Like, it doesn't matter. But like, I always set the expectation that right there in the very beginning, because they feel good knowing that service is coming and they're going to get taken care of. But you should never promise something you're not willing to do. Like, if you're not going to do service calls, don't tell them you'll come do in-home sharpening. Just tell them you'll do service events where they can mail their stuff in. Because if you set an expectation for the customer and then you don't fulfill it, like, that's the stuff they remember. They don't remember all the good stuff you do. They remember the one time you messed up, and that's what's going to stick out to them. So like, you want to set something that's realistic based on your business.
Awesome. Any other questions out there? Anything? Otherwise, you got to wait till August when Calvin comes.
I get to work 2 days with them, so.
Woo! I'm gonna give you a hard time.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, I got a quick question, and I know we've probably talked about some of this stuff too, just at Net, but what's the main thing that you're doing now to prepare for your key events? Because I know one of the reasons why Texas is such a huge event is just because you guys have a different level of preparation, different level of standards. So it's like, I mean, there's the skill set piece, but like, what else are you doing now to prepare for your big key events? And I know it's very kind of.
No, I love this question. Like, this has been asked to me a couple of times, and I think this is why sometimes our regular events aren't as good as they should be. So I don't treat a key event any different than any other event I work. I treat all my events that I work, any day I'm going out to work and I'm choosing to step out into the business and do something, I treat it like I would treat a key event. So I'm going to come correct. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to set my stuff up to make it look expensive and make it look nice to attract people to it. I'm going to listen to audios whenever I drive to my events. Every event I work, I listen to some type of audio just to kind of refresh on anything I may feel like I've kind of let go for a little bit too long. I'm gonna practice my scripts before my events. Sometimes, like, I'll sit down and I'll meet with people and we'll go over things just so we can be ready for it. But like, I treat every single event I work, whether it's a service event, a service call, the Texas State Fair, whatever, like, they're all the same. They all feel important. And if I'm going to take time and I'm going to pay to be somewhere, like, I want to come my best so I can perform my best. So like, I'm going to do the same thing for any event. So like, again, I'll do, again, it's audios, practicing scripts, role playing, sitting down with people, going over stuff, like, and that's like a lot of the stuff we do for the Texas State Fair. We have calls, like we have our monthly calls with our events team as well. where we can continue to learn. We have a focus that we're going to try to focus on. So we're going to try to pull people that do those things well to talk to us so we can go over it. And again, I'll call people that are better in the business than me if I have questions. I don't mind calling a Seth Kinzer or a Curtis JQs or anybody who sells Cutco and being like, hey, I've been slacking on my ultimate upgrade approach. Can you sit down with me for 5 or 10 minutes and like help me, give me a couple of tips on things you've added to or you've changed over the past couple of years, because it's probably evolved since the last time we talked about it. And the thing about Cutco reps is they all love to talk, especially CSPs. We all love to give advice or be the person people call. So like you're just feeding their ego, so that's payment enough for them. Like, don't worry about feeling like you owe them something. But like that's really what it is. Like I just treat every event the same. Like I treat every event like I would treat the Texas State Fair. And because I've been doing that, our averages and our stats have been going up so much better. And so when I go into a home show, it's not a big deal to sell 20 or 30 grand that weekend, because like I'm expecting to sell that 20 or 30 grand. Like if I go into a Canton Market Days was like a giant flea market, again, same thing, 20 grand is what I'm expecting to sell that weekend if I'm working. Like that's the standard and the expectation I set for myself is if I go out and work, I want to sell at least $20,000. If it's a better event, that's still my minimum standard. But like the reality is obviously I want to sell more, but like I treat everything at the highest level. So that way I always get the highest results. That makes sense, Josh?
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hey, Calvin, we really appreciate you jumping on. Definitely look forward to spending some time with you at the retreat for Wisconsin State Fair and Texas in September. But yeah, man, appreciate you sharing the goods. Yeah, I guess we'll see you in about a month.
Sounds good. I look forward to it. Y'all are amazing. Y'all are going to crush whatever you're about to do next. And I can't wait to see it on the stats. Y'all have a good one.
Appreciate it. You too. Was that fire? Was that fire?
Hands are burning.
Yeah, that was awesome. So hopefully you guys learned some stuff today from LA and Calvin. Both were great talks. Does anyone, we're actually gonna wrap a little early here today. Does anyone have any questions about anything else, events, team-wise? Steak dinner contest. We do have, I know Big Sky definitely is the top division. So I'll be flying out to host a steak dinner for the, looks like 3 people that won. We're still finalizing numbers yet, so I don't want to announce results, but I definitely know Big Sky is the top division. And then second division, we're just finalizing numbers. Pretty confident in who it's going to be, but I'll share that on the group me later today or tomorrow. So, but is there any other questions about anything? Booking events, stats, anything logistical, anything at all?
I was going to ask, do you know dates for like Milwaukee service event following State Fair, or are you going to send like that?
Not yet. I'll send out some communication about that either this week or next week. But yeah, I'll definitely be in touch about that, Josh. So for all the State Fair people. So.
Cool.
Any other questions?
You forgot to promote like the management opportunities you have available.
Oh yeah. Well, we do have obviously the event manager position. So I don't know if I told you guys this yet, but Seth Jarecki, he's actually going to be our display kit manager. So if you use a community kit, he will be the guy that is in touch with you moving forward. We're still kind of building the system, but in the next week or two, he'll be the guy connecting with you and telling you where to pick up a kit. So if you don't know that already, you do now. And then we also do have a couple positions available. If you are interested in being a part of the event manager staff, you get to be on a weekly phone call with the rest of the event managers and myself. And then you get to help plan some of the cool incentives that we do, and also, help build the rest of the team. So we also do have, just so you guys know, we do have a couple events trainings coming up. We have one in Gateway in St. Louis at Lindsay's office. That's happening on Monday. And then we also have an events training in Appleton, Wisconsin, in Northwoods and that's going to be happening on Tuesday. So yes, I'm flying, moving and grooving. So, but yeah, so if you are in those local areas and you want to stop in, definitely feel free. I know for the Northwoods crew, I know Jason's doing a dinner after the training, but yeah, if you want to stop in, just let me know, and would be happy to have you stop into events training.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
So we just got a new storage unit for all the kits, right? Where was the storage unit again?
So that was in Northwoods. We don't have one in Skyway yet. We're right now. So if you haven't filled out the display kit, Google Doc form that I shared with everybody, and you're on this call, it is in your email inbox. Find it, fill that out. Right now, we're just trying to figure out who owns a kit and if we need to place a community kit or a storage unit somewhere within the division. But right now, Northwoods is there was a dire need for one because there's a lot of people using a community kit there. So we do have a storage unit there, and then we plan to have one in Illinois as well. So yeah, so we'll be in touch, Alex.
Cool. Thank you.
But for now, Connor and JD both have community kits, so you can definitely pick them up from them.
Okay. Yeah, it was more a thing of like I wanted to drop something off at the storage unit on my way somewhere. So, but y'all figure it out.
Do you have something that it belongs to somebody, or?
Well, there's a possibility I'll be heading straight to a festival from an event, and I can't go to a festival with knives in my car, so I would just need to drop it off somewhere in the meantime.
Got it. Well, yeah. Why don't you shoot me an email and we can talk more about it. We'll figure something out. But yeah, just shoot me an email. Any other questions about anything?
I just want to get a consensus. If you allow me, Nick. What do you guys think about the messages, guys? What was you guys' thoughts?
Thought it was great.